How to create a marketing and sales budget. You're spending blindly on paid ads hoping they return? That's not a budget, that's a bet. Most owners either overspend on marketing or they underspend because of fear. That's not a strategy. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to budget for marketing and sales that sets you up for growth. We've had the privilege to be able to travel a lot of different places, both in the United States and also around the world. And in our traveling, one thing that's been consistent throughout is before we go anywhere, my wife and I will sit down and we'll create a little budget. Why? It's because I don't want to be in the middle of Cinque Terre in Italy, or I don't want to be in the middle of the Cappadocia region of Turkey, and all of a sudden, I don't have any money. I ran out of money. It'd be a tough place to be. And yet a lot of times in business, what we do as owners is we set no budget. We either overspend on what's happening or we underspend out of fear. Both will kill the growth of our business if we're not careful. So instead, before we go on this road trip of marketing, before we go on the road trip of sales, let's set a proper budget so that we understand what our spend, or better yet, our investment is going to be in both of these disciplines. And notice what I just did there. Both of these disciplines, marketing and sales, do not go together. They work in complementary, in symbiosis, but they are not the same system. There is a marketing system and a sales system. Actually, there's 4 core systems of every business. If you'll click on a link in the description below, I've actually got another video where I walk through what we call the 4 P's of every business and the 4 core. And I'll walk you through the 4 core systems of every business so you can see your business as a full-scale operating system. So now let's go build a budget for marketing and for sales. The first thing we're going to start with is the top line. We're going to go straight to the top and we're going to ask ourselves, what's the anticipated revenue for our business this year? Now some of you look and you're watching this video going, I have no idea. Okay, that's fine. What do you think it might be? I have no idea. Okay, well let's run some simple math. Based on the last 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, what has been your revenue and what could that be this year based on what you think you're going to sell? You're going to have to give this your best guess, but you got to get to a number. So once you have that number, I want you to go ahead and just write that number down. Now, if you're in a business that has any cost of goods whatsoever, so if you're a contractor, then your cost of goods are labor and materials. If you're a restaurant, your cost of goods are the food cost. If you're an ice cream shop, your cost of goods are the ice cream. If you're a gas station, your cost of goods is the fuel that you buy, right? So whatever your cost of goods is, I want you to take that percentage and reduce your revenue with that number. So if your cost of goods are 30% and you think you're going to do $1 million this year, then your gross margin is $700,000. That's the 1 million minus the 300,000. So we get you to 700,000. Now I'm going to call that gross margin something called real revenue. I heard that from a guy named Mike McAllowitz, and I really like it because that's the real revenue you have to run your business. All right, so now let's set a marketing budget based on that. Once you know that number, let's keep going with this example. So we start at $1 million of total revenue. We have 30% cost of goods, means if we didn't have the business, we wouldn't have those costs. They would go away. But we would still potentially have the $700,000 of liability to spend to work on the business. So if you have $700,000, then we need to determine what percent of that we're going to invest into marketing. I want to give you a range. I had a friend who told me the range 3 to 13%. He runs a marketing agency. I took him on good faith for the number. We've run it through hundreds of businesses, and it turns out it's a pretty good range. So 3% of your real revenue is a very conservative spend, meaning not a lot, but it'll get you started. And a 13% spend on your real revenue is a pretty aggressive spend. Now, some people spend higher than that. My goodness, who would spend higher than that? Well, people like billboard lawyers. They spend probably more than 13% of their gross revenue on marketing, just to be out constantly telling you to call all nines. So let's use the example of $700,000. Let's say you kind of want to go a little aggressive. And so you're going to put your number at 10%. I'm kind of using round numbers so I can do the math in my head. So at $700,000, you've basically said, I'm going to spend $70,000, or I'm going to invest $70,000 in marketing this year. Now, your marketing investment is not just on hiring the agency. It's also paying for the CRM. Anybody who's devoting their time to marketing, it's paying for them as well. If you pay commissions based on lead generation, that's part of your $70,000. And so you got to constrain yourself to make that investment within the $70,000 so that you can start to generate the leads that you're wanting to based on a budget. Now, just because you may not be able to stay within that 10% doesn't mean you're wrong. It's just informing you of where you're at in the business from a marketing standpoint. Budgets help inform us. They're not there to tell us whether we're right or wrong. Budgets are not a moral right or wrong issue. They're an information tool to help us to understand where we're investing our time and our resources in the business and what the return on that investment looks like. All right, so we've started on the marketing budget. Now let's pivot to sales. And if we were to do a sales budget, the sales numbers might look a little different. Now this range of sales is almost impossible to give you. So I'm going to give you a starting number. When you're looking at your sales budget, I would look to start at around 10%. And that's 10% of your real revenue. And so in this case, it would be another $70,000 that you spend in order to generate sales for this. Now, spending $70,000, you may not be able to afford a full-time salesperson at that point. So you may want to go, I kind of want to invest 15%. Now just remember this, any lever you pull up, you need to pull another lever down because $700,000 is a finite number. We don't just get to increase that because we want to increase that. And so you've got a finite amount of investment dollars to be able to deploy, in this case into marketing and into sales. So if you just start with your sales and go, okay, what could I get for $70,000? Well, I as the owner am still doing some sales, so I need to tab some of my time for that. Well, you know what? I can't afford anybody else, and right now I can handle all the sales. And so what you decide is you're going to keep all that $70,000 and you will keep doing the sales. The flip side of that is you could go, no, I don't want to do the sales anymore. Okay. Well, if you do 10%, you've deployed $70,000 to be able to do that. You decide that's not enough. Okay, let's ramp it up to 15%, which means we either need to take our marketing dollars down or some other system we need to bring down. But let's say we took our marketing lever down. Here's how that would work. So you would want to ramp up your sales by 15% and decrease your marketing by 5%. So let's say you wanted to increase your sales percentage from 10 to 15. That means we've got to take your marketing percentage from 10 to 5. And so you see that delta there and how that's working? Well, what you could do is say, hey, salesperson, I've taken marketing budget and I've applied it to sales, which means I need you to go to networking events. And so you're going to have to do some marketing disciplines because I've taken some of that money from marketing and I've put it over here in sales. So I hope you see how we're taking some of those marketing investment dollars and deploying them in different elements so they work in that symbiotic relationship. But what we've got to realize is we've got to put a number on marketing and a number on sales. So under our examples, we're spending 20% on sales and marketing. Remember, 15 on sales, 5 on marketing. Now you may look at that and go, I actually have more I could deploy. Okay, great. So you're going to up your marketing or you're going to up your sales, but remember you have to take that from operations or administration. You might have to take some money away from those in order to increase what you're going to do on marketing and sales. I want to stick in sales for just a minute because a lot of folks have questions about how to compensate their salespeople. Well, the compensation of sales needs to be within that percentage, that 15 or 20 or 5 or whatever you decide on. And so I want to give you a 3-tiered structure for compensating your salespeople that usually works pretty well. A lot of salespeople have a hard time coming on commission only, and yet a lot of them are motivated by commission. So here's a good place to start, is you could do a 3-tier compensation schedule for a potential salesperson. Tier number 1 is what we call the base tier. So this would be a base compensation of a standard amount every single month. It could be $500, it could be $1,000, it could be $5,000. We call it a livable base. And so that is, they can pay their groceries and their rent based on what they're making that month. Now, if they're getting $500, that's probably not a livable base. But you decide in your business what you would want to do, and it's enough money to get somebody to come. Then what you want to do is leave them hungry to go generate more business, and that's second tier of what we call the commission tier. The first tier is the base tier, and that's what they're getting every month, and for that base tier, they're required to do the sales activities that you've laid out in your KPIs. That's their responsibility for their sales job role. Now, the commission is based on whatever you want to base it on, but in my recommendation, it's based on closed deals. Not just conversations, not just booked appointments, but actual closed deals. And they get a percentage of that closed deal. Usually what we like to do is we like for the commission to equate either 100% or more than what you paid at the base. So for instance, if you paid them $50,000 as an annual base, we want to see them to be able to earn $50,000 or more as a commission. And so you want to look at those levers there. And then there's a third tier that we call the one-time kicker tier. What do I mean by that? So they've got their base that they're getting every month. They've got their commission that's variable, but then they'll have this one-time kicker tier where every quarter or semester or year, if they hit certain thresholds, 15 closes a quarter, 100 closes a quarter, a certain dollar volume, whatever it might be, they get a one-time check for a certain amount that's a higher level amount. And so maybe they make 50 as a base, 55 as a commission, and they make an extra $10,000 a year in their kicker. So I've talked to you about the 3-tiered sales compensation. You need to just look at it and realize you have flexibility to invest in that salesperson however you want. Don't get lost in the mechanics. Get lost in understanding the investment and the budget that you have for both of these. I'm just giving you some ideas so that you can begin to impact that investment that you're making in both of these verticals. The bigger issue is finding the right people. And so there's another video that I'm going to put a link to down in the description below. And I want you to go watch that video once you're done with this one, because it's going to walk you through how to find, hire, and retain the right people so that you can get the right people on the bus to help market better than you market and sell better than you sell. I know what you're thinking. Nobody can market and sell like I do. Not the truth. Because over time, you're going to train them and they're going to do it more than you, which means they'll probably be more effective than you over time. And that's where you want to be as a business owner. Why? It's because it's chaotic to try to do it all yourself, to be the Swiss Army knife, doing marketing, sales, ops, admin. So instead, let's deploy this, let's train other people and make the investment in marketing and sales with a proper budget so that you can be liberated from chaos to make time for what matters most.